Welcome back to this lesson, guys. Now let's go over a few React Router components before we head over to our code and start using them. In the previous lesson, we saw how we can set up our application to use router functionality by wrapping our app component in the browser router component. Now, to actually define a route to another page in our browser, we use the route component of the React Router library. The route component is used to define a route and specify the component to render when the URL matches that route. It takes two main props. It takes a path prop, which specifies the URL pattern to match, and an element prop, which specifies the React component to render when the URL matches the path. Now let's head back over to our code and see how we can define a route to take us to another page in our browser and display the component we want to render in that page. Back in our code, let's clear the JSX in our app component and change it to a home page route component. So I'm just going to cut the div over here, everything inside the div from the header. I'm going to cut that, and then I will define a home component right above the app component, just like this. And then the home component is simply going to return a h1 that says home page, just like this. Right below it, let's create an about us component which will render in another page. So const about us, and this is going to return a h1 that says about us page, just like this. Oh, this should be small letter h, right? All right, now let's use router components from React Router DOM to show these individual components based on the URL path specified. First, let's import it. So over here at the top of our file, we just have to say import inside curly braces route from React Router DOM. Alright, now that we've imported our route component from React Router DOM, so inside our app function, let's define our route components and display our pages individually. So in here, we just have to say route, just like this. Like I said before, the route component takes two props, a path prop and an element prop. So in here, we have to specify the path in which we'll follow to reach that page in our browser. So path is going to be equal to, for the home page, we want it to be the root of our URL. So over here, we're just going to put a /, which signifies the root of our URL. Also, if you want to render an app to be the root of your URL, apart from adding a / in your path, we should also add an exact keyword. This is going to make sure our route outputs the right component at the exact root of our project. Right, so now we need to add the element prop. And this is going to take the React component which is going to be rendered when the user goes to the path. So at the root URL of our project, we want to display the home page. So in here, just like we display components, we are just going to display our home component. Now that we define our new route, let's test it before we add the second route, which is going to be our about us page. So let's head back to our browser and see if this actually works. As you can see, we have an error which says a route is only ever to be used as the child of route element. So what does this error mean? React is telling us that we can only render a route inside of a route component, not a div container, as we have done back in our code. The routes component, apart from being the plural of route, it helps in rendering a single route exclusively by wrapping multiple route components within it. If no match is found, a default not found component can be rendered. I know this might sound confusing at the beginning, but let's actually see how this works, and it should be really easy for you to grasp. So instead of having our div over here, we just have to turn this div into a route component, just like this. and again VS Code automatically imported it for me, but you can go up here, add a comma and add the routes here. So now we've imported our route and our routes, and that's what we have here. So in order for you to have a route component, you need to wrap it inside of a routes component. That is the only way you can have routes that leads to other pages. Now if I head back to our code in the browser, you can see it works perfectly for us. We have the home page component displaying. Alright, so let's head back to our code and actually create another route for the About Us component we created earlier. So inside of our route component, let's copy and paste our home route and then change it to go to the About Us page. So since we said the exact keyword should only be used for the root URL of your project, we need to remove it here since we want to add another path. So over here, after the /, we just need to specify a new path for our About Us page, which is simply going to be about, and then we change the element to be rendered to our About Us element, just like this. I think this should be pretty intuitive. Now let's head back to our browser and see if this actually works. Over at the URL, let's add a /about for the new route we created, and if I hit enter, you can see we have a new component being rendered for us, About Us page.